Apparently. Can I get a motion?
I move approval of the, of policy, it's on the screen.
1.402.
1.402 with the indicated deletion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
No.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I was counting.
You might want to, I believe Ms. Tyler's on the
Okay,
line.
she's, so the next policy we're going to discuss is a policy on education equity. Ms. Tyler, I will pass it to you. Did you hear me?
Did look like it. Plus
He was on there.
She's on there.
she's on. Why we skipping over all that? Why don't we do it when we get to it?
It's next.
Oh, there's a next thing here.
Huh. What's the number? 1.7001. Thank you. I saw Ms. Tyler.
Here she is.
Okey-doke. Ms. Tyler, can you hear us? Nope. That's a no. But she also can't hear us.
Having trouble hearing, obviously. She says she doesn't have sound.
Should we go to the other
Let's just
policies?
do the other policy. The sound thing will be on her end though, if she can't hear.
Dr. Severe, can we move on to the other policies? then?
Yes, certainly.
What say you? Okay.
Let me tell her what's going on. Okay, good. I think we're set now. Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're muted.
Our mic-
You're
but you're
muted,
muted.
Ms. Tyler.
Ms. Tyler, if you'll unmute yourself, I think we'll be able to hear you on. There you go. Great.
There
Thank
we
you.
go.
And we're up with 1.7001, education equity.
Okay. Ms. Tyler, you're up on the discussion of the education equity policy.
Oh,
We can't hear you again because they muted it to stop the feedback, I think.
sure. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So at the direction of Chair Buff, I chaired the Ad Hoc Educational Equity Committee this summer. The committee was thoughtful and thorough in our approach to creating this policy, and I'm proud of the work that we've done. The committee included diverse perspectives and voices from all over Nashville, including representation from MNPS students, the MNPS Parent Advisory Council, MNPS teachers via MNEA, NOAA, the El Cava Center, and the NAACP Education Committee. We were also joined by Councilwoman Sulfat Swara and several equity-minded MNPS employees, including Ashford Hughes, Derek Williams, Amy Lomax, and Alyssa Norris. We met 4 times over the summer, each group's representative tasked with taking our discussion and any changes back to their group for input. Our final draft is before you today.
I would like to open the floor for discussion. Do we want to get a motion for approval?
I move to approve. Can I do that if I'm the one who did it?
Yeah. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, so let's move into discussion. Thank you, Ms. Tyler, for all your hard work on this, on convening the community members, staff members, other folks. I wanted to make a friendly amendment to this policy. I've been giving it quite a bit of thought, and one of the things that I will preface this by saying that I believe we all prioritize equity, feel equity is currently central to what we're doing. I think naming it and putting in a policy is important. But I also think that we can get into trouble if we constrain ourselves by very, what I would consider enumerated language. I would love to make an amendment to simply just have line 16 through 19 amended and strike 1 through 5 numbers and just leave it more open, because what I feel is with 1 through 5, what we do is we have a lot of things that are listed, but we also have many things that are not included in this policy that I think we're limiting our own imagination, I would say. And I also think that we have some resolution-type language in this policy, whereas policy language is meant to be much more concrete. And so the amendment I'm hoping to make is the following, starting on line 16, is to say the board and director of schools shall consider the values outlined in this policy and use an equity lens when conducting its business and exercising its responsibilities to the people of this community. The director of schools shall develop a plan for addressing issues of equity and provide updates to the board. And that's where I would end the policy, in order to leave it as open-ended as possible. So I'd like to make that amendment. So how does this work? Do I just make the
You
amendment?
can make another motion.
Make
for
a
the
motion.
amendment, Unless you want to wait for this further discussion.
So I would, what do you think?
Go further Mike.
Let's do some further
Can you
discussion.
speak to the mic?
Discussion first? Would you say? Yeah.
Further discussion.
I would love to hear people's thoughts on that.
Did you have another amendment too, or is
No.
that? Okay, all right. I got lost in the different lines
Yeah.
a little bit.
So
Okay.
I guess the amendment is what I read for line 16 through 19, and then striking 20 through, to the end of the, and all of the bulleted, numbers 1 through 5.
And that would end it then?
Uh-huh.
Would you read yours again,
Sure.
please? Okay, sorry. I'm
The
focusing.
board and director of schools shall consider the values outlined in this policy and use an equity lens when conducting its business and exercising its responsibilities to the people of this community. The director of schools shall develop a plan for addressing issues of equity and provide updates to the board. Period. Would love feedback, reactions, discussion. Ms. Bucks.
I will say, I appreciate that that it suggests that she will continue to give us these updates on equity, on data, the more that we'll dive into it. So I'm still wrapping my head around it, but sure.
Ms. Masters?
I was just going to say, I would love to hear, I was wondering if Abigail Tyler heard us, because I'd love to hear from her, just because she was involved with this
Sure.
whole stakeholder process. And so this is really our first chance to weigh in, since it was an external committee.
Ms. Walker, is it okay if I start?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, great. The groups that I met with were pretty adamant about including specific things and keeping it still open. I think there was some concern that if you just say the district should be equitable and you should provide updates to the board, that's so open-ended that it would not address some of the specific that had been brought up as problematic in the past. I think that the ones, let me go through and see if I can pull it up. So when we're looking at the different numbers of them, we wanted to enumerate enough of a specific thing to ensure that the vision would actually happen and that it would meet the requirements of what the group as a whole had thought was really important. So one of the things that the group as a whole thought was really important is that the three things, or 10 or 4, truly barriers that we see across the nation for equity. That there's a large disparity in advanced academics, that we see discipline disparities, and that our students who receive exceptional education services have larger opportunity gaps than some of the other groups. And so those things are not an MNPS specific thing. Those are actually larger on the national scale. And by calling them out specifically, it creates the need to look at them individually as opposed to hoping that the director will choose to look at those things and include them in whatever report he or she gives to the school board. And I know that Dr. Battle has these in mind. I know that as part of her equity plan, I know that she cares about these specific things as well as others. But if she's not the director forever and we are long gone and there's somebody new, we want to make sure that we keep these thoughts at the forefront and that we don't allow the ability to kind of weasel out of looking at very specific things that really have shown to be problematic across the nation. So that was one of the reasons for including some of the more specific directives in there. And those in particular were really the reasoning behind that. And the other ones were basically, number 3 was really important to several of the groups that that are, their students tend to be more English as a second language student, because they have found that sometimes the ELL students are not given the same footing as different racial groups, and they wanted to make sure that it has something in there for every single group, that we're looking at students, families, and the community, and that those 3 things are specifically included so that it includes the community, parents, families, the people who work in the school system, because sometimes when you're living in the middle of something, you don't recognize the barriers that are already in front of you because it's become so normalized. And so by putting something specifically in here to say we are going to have to work with not just the people who already work with MNPS and not just our students, but we're going to have to go outside of that and also be mindful to work with our families and the community, so that we are making sure that we don't have blind spots, and that when we have barriers to achievement that we may not realize are barriers, that those can be brought to our attention from these other groups, and that we are specifically tasked with listening and looking at these other groups. And again, Dr. Battle has been very great about this. She has been wonderful about making sure that she's putting out her community surveys. She has I think we've increased our number of language services in the different hubs that we have. When we had different hubs around there, we made sure that we had translators in all of them. So I know that she cares about these things. But again, when we're looking at the far future, at the policy and what it does, we want to make sure that we are not leaving loopholes where people will feel like they're going to be left out.
Mr. Long? No, okay. Ms. Elrod?
Thank you. If we were to leave it, and this question is, I guess, for Abigail, but I, of course, will entertain an answer from my colleagues as well. But if we were to leave it as it is with these 5 bullets, I don't disagree that if we're going to look at number 4, which is line 1 on the second page of it, that those are the areas that we have discussed probably the most within our education equity. My argument to some of this would be that we're going to have things that we need to add, which I believe is kind of what Ms. Poopa-Walker is saying. So I would like to know from Ms. Tyler, as we need to add additional areas of an equity lens, what would be the intention of how that affects this policy? An example, or some examples of that would be, like, we need to consider an equity lens on our facilities and our transportation and our after-school opportunities and our pre-K seats and some other things. Do you have those on your list? Okay. Okay. So we have several other things. So in those cases, I'm not saying that they're less or more important, and I know that you're not either, please understand. But as we continue to have these disproportionate issues, how would you want us to update this in the policy? Would it require, in your opinion, a new policy? Would you want us to continue to do an addendum to this? Because it is currently at that limit of what's listed on number 4.
I think number 5 addresses some of that. The director of schools shall establish and make publicly available plans and procedures to implement all equity goals. So as we look at things, we're not limiting ourselves to those listed in number 4, because those are such glaring examples of inequity across the nation, not just in MNPS, but everywhere in the United States. We see inequities in all of these areas specifically. We don't always see disparities in after-school programs. We don't always see disparities in transportation. They exist, but we don't always see them the same way that you can look at the data for these 3 things. And that's why those were teased out specifically. But we weren't trying to say you cannot add anything else. The idea of saying that the director of schools is making a plan and procedure to implement all equity goals, to us, that was the catch-all that would have all of the ideas to look at all of the minutia of running a school system and ensuring that equity lens is used when we're looking at that minutia of how to run it. And I think really important also that the next sentence, number 5, the plans and procedures shall include measurable goals with clear accountability for actions and oversight, and updates shall be publicly shared with the board at least annually. So these are not things that are shared via email once a week. These are not things that are shared in a closed meeting sometime somewhere else. They're things the public also has access to, and they're things that are measurable. And those are really important to several of the groups that participated in creating this.
Did you want to follow up?
Yeah, please. I just want to make sure I understand you correctly, Ms. Tyler, because I know that you're doing your best with the technical issues, but there's a little bit of cutout, so I want to make sure I understand you correctly. So in number 4, it says that the director of schools will develop plans specific to those 3 bullet points. You're saying that if we were to encourage that to happen, where the developmental plan of these other options, whether they're ones I listed or otherwise, that would be, that's allowable in your opinion, but we would have to go through some type of policy change. I'm looking at Dr. Severe at this case, yes. So we'd have to go through a policy change on how to fix that. But your belief is that we should start off on these 3 main data glaring concerns and then add to it as we go along. Is that a correct assumption?
Those are the 3 that I wanted to ensure that we have highlight for, and that I wanted to ensure that we had the information. But if you looked at the equity plan Ashford has shared with us, and he shared with us while we were writing this, it includes much more than these 3 things. And we want it to include much more than those 3 things, which is why that number 5 says all equity goals. An equity goal is up to Dr. Battle and what her team or the superintendent and whatever his or her team decides is necessary to be a goal. And so we saw that as more of the catch-all. So we didn't have to enumerate every single thing. We just wanted to make sure that the 3 things that were listed in number 4 would definitely be in there no matter what. And then number 5 ensures that anything else the director wants to add as an equity goal is included.
My question is for Dr. Battle, if possible. Does this add any additional work to the equity roadmap, or is this already addressed in the equity roadmap that we have?
I think this is a great question. I've been taking in the feedback with regards to this policy. The equity roadmap is going to encompass this plus much more. And I think what I'm hearing is having the opportunity to address equity in various ways. You're going to get an update later today with regards to where we are with our equity roadmap. And so when we have such a potentially narrow focus on the disparities we currently see, it kind of limits the the planning process to be responsive to those disparities we see across the district. I think y'all named many of them, and I think we could easily unpack some of the data that aligns to some of the equity issues that we have around transportation, the way in which we addressed our fifth grade transition back to our elementary school. So I would appreciate just kind of the expansive view that really grounds and guides us as an administrative team to think all things equity, right? In places that we might not even think about right now that truly does exist in our hiring practices. What does our workforce look like? And again, many of the things that you've already stated. To Ms. Tyler's point, I think these are areas that, of course, we want to pay attention to and also have measurable goals and rounds and provide updates to the district. But there are other things that also might come up, particularly as we are navigating, hopefully, the end of this pandemic. We're still learning things about our students and the impact and the distractions that it has caused as well. And so I just think it's important that, one, we're acknowledging equity. I think we all agree that we have to acknowledge equity and have a plan around how we're addressing those disparities, but our policy should ground us in all things equity. When you're thinking about instructional equity, when you're thinking about programmatic equity, when you're thinking about operational equity, all of that should be a part of and represented in our policy itself. And then what we do is back that up with a procedure, or as you've heard about, our equity roadmap that helps us as an organization move forward in thinking about those inequities that do exist across our system.
Thank you. Dr. Gentry?
Yeah, so all of that Dr. Battle just shared, and so, just even as Ms. Elrod listed out some of the things that are missing, like it doesn't talk about, one of our other big issues we talk about is staffing, right? Are we putting the right people in front of our students that are reflective of them? So I appreciate the conversation, and I would agree with, so, and guys, y'all know I have problems with policies and resolutions. So I struggle when policies are prescriptive. Now, policy should tell us that we should have a focus on something, but how to focus on that is probably where we're going to back ourselves into a corner. And I notice that there are some things that have been called out here specifically in number 4 that we've been called out on before. And I get it, that there's this general sentiment that we haven't given the attention to advanced academics. We've had exhaustive conversation at this table about this. Over the years, we've had exhaustive conversation about discipline disparities, and I believe that this is put here to call those things out because of past behaviors. But as we have found ourselves, we have an equity roadmap that we've not had before. And I know that we put this, we need to have, to be clear, we need to have an equity policy, but I think we need to appreciate the work that's already being done. But even with that aside, the policy should not tell you how to get it done. That's where operations come in. If we want these 3 things to be the priority, we do the same thing that we did with the budget. We don't have a policy around the budget, and the budget tells us what's the priority of that year. We make those priorities as a board. And to Dr. Battle's point, as things begin to change, other things may become the focus, and we don't want to say, well, that's not called out in number 4. It's not on there. Well, it says here that should establish available plans and procedures to implement all equity goals. Well, what are those goals? Again, those are all outside of the policy. Those goals may change. Those things that are a priority may change. These things in number 4 may be the priority now, but they may not be the priority for the next board or for the next school year or 2 or 3 school years from now. So I think the policy should exist to tell us that we need to have a focus on equity, that the focus on equity needs to address all those aspects that impact outcomes for students, however you want to generalize that statement, which covers from staffing to resources to everything that impacts student outcomes. But to call these things out specifically, I would agree, Ms. Walker, Ms. Pupo Walker, that we may be, I think it's getting into the how versus just the policy. It's being a little too prescriptive. We need to be mindful as a board that it's our job to review the roadmap to say, are we addressing those things, the right things at this point in time that are impacting our students, from an equity perspective, that are impacting our students and families and how they're experiencing MNPS.
Ms. Masters?
Thank you. I was going to say that I can certainly see a place where we accept the policy around, the statement, the general statement around equity, potentially even changing this from education equity to equity as our grounding policy for equity, which is something we don't currently have and certainly need. And I'm so appreciative that that initial statement was created with so many community stakeholders. Beyond that, I look down through here and I think, what are the things within here that might not apply to future directors of schools or might not be easily implemented moving forward, or not easily, but, might not be, there might not be an ability to operationalize it. I think I look at it from that lens more so than what's missing, because, we and future boards can add what's missing as we go forward. So, for example, I see like line 19 and 20 as something that does feel like it can fit within that more general policy statement. But then to Dr. Gentry's point, for example, number 4, that does feel a little more procedural. So I'm just thinking maybe we can come into some sort of middle ground where we keep the intention of the policy. I certainly am very committed to passing this policy this evening. But I'd like us to maybe try to hang on to a little bit more of the original intention. I can even see how number 3, sorry, my computer's acting up. Number 3 is one that we could hang on to as a larger sort of all-encompassing statement. So just sort of asking everybody to take a little look-see at it, one more look-see, and see what feels sort of high-level enough. And we are coming at this from this very comfortable position of having a director of schools who's prioritized equity. So I don't want us to sit in that with too much comfort as we try to write policy that's going to be evergreen.
Mr. Little?
Yeah, and I've been listening, and it's been really good debate, but I know the process coming from the community has been really engaging just in my time on the board. And my question as we debate this is, do we think this will have a negative fiscal impact, or will it misdirect like the current internal strategy that we have for this proposed equity roadmap? And that's open to the board. It's not necessarily Dr. Battle. I think because I'm trying to, because I like the process and then I listen to the feedback, so I'm trying to figure out, even if we did, could we strengthen this in the future? If it was a misdirection currently, could the board come back and make changes? But that's why I asked if it'll be a negative fiscal impact, or if it's going to be a misdirection of the current equity roadmap. I get it. We need to question it.
I don't know if you can see.
Are you asking if we pass this, does it
Negate that.
negate or
Right.
cause challenges to this? Yeah.
Or have a negative fiscal impact where okay. No.
Go ahead,
So
Dr.
we
Bennett.
had,
Okay.
Ashford Hughes was on the team. Is it okay if I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't know if you can see me or not, so it's hard.
We got you.
Yeah, so he was on the team and he helped us devise these. And there are several other people from MNPS, including David Sevier, who also helped us work through this to make sure that it would not create negative fiscal impact, because we're not allowed to have fiscal impact in our policies, and also to make sure that it was a broader language that was not super prescriptive. So in the effort to be fair, I can see what you're saying about number 4, how it can be limiting instead of helpful. I do not want to cut all of the numbers because they were extremely important to all of the groups that came together to do this. The students, the teachers, the parents, all the other community groups that were part of this. they thought it was really important to include these specific mentions. And I don't want to discard their hard work or their input. And so I would be willing to say if we take out number 4, number 5 covers that. We make number 5 the new number 4, and that director of schools shall establish and make publicly available plans and procedures to implement all equity goals. And that should include the things that had been previously enumerated, like discipline disparities, advanced academic, those things. But it could also expand to include the things that are included in our equity roadmap, the things that we already have and a plan for how to address them. So I think it's really important to not discard the input from the people that have spent a lot of time and effort going over it. And I don't think that it's too prescriptive. I think that if you look at number 5, it says make a plan, but it doesn't tell them what the plan has to be. It says implement goals. It doesn't say what the goals have to be. It says you need to they need to be measurable, and you need to share them publicly. And to me, that is pretty broad to provide accountability and still allow room for the administration to make choices about what they're going to focus on and how they're going to do it the way that they see best fit.
Funny that I was getting ready to say that some of these actually more sound like guiding principles. So before I opened my mouth, I went and found the guiding principles, and oh my God, they're there.
On the roadmap.
On the roadmap. They're already here. They're guiding principles that we should consider all these things, that there should be ensured students are held to high expectations, that there's professional learning opportunities, which is already called out in here, that it's collaborative commitments, working with the community. So the guiding principles is which these, again, which I believe these are more than a policy. They're guiding principles that in creating the roadmap, these are the things that you need to consider. So I think the guiding principles have been considered in the roadmap, which is very appropriate for them to be there, that there should be this sort of a cover letter that leads you into, okay, so what's the plan, right? So what was our thinking? We got an equity lens, here are the guiding principles, and in applying that equity lens, and this is what we've decided our plan is going to be. So again, I would just say I still believe 1 is resolution language, and I said that in the debrief with Noah. There was a number 6 that is now gone, and I appreciate that. And again, I think a lot of these that they're going to be District 2 develop professional development. It's a guiding principle. So when we talk about equity, these are all the things that we should consider, and I think they're covered, again, in the guiding principles that are already included in the roadmap, because they are more guiding principles than they are policy.
Ms. Elrod, and then Ms. Bugs.
Thank you. I was going to say similarly that 1, 2, 3, and 5, for the examples that I had given, though not specifically labeled out, they do fit underneath these umbrellas of equitable distribution of resources and publicly available plans. I personally really appreciate the inclusion of there needing to be measurable goals within it as well. But they are definitely more in line with what we already, or not what we already, but what we're about to discuss as the equity roadmap, as those guiding principles. I think that those are they should be kept for sure, as they've been asked for by the community. They fit within the roadmap. They seem to have been requested not only by the community, but internally they've been agreed to as not creating a fiscal cliff or any kind that's been requested as a question. And they fit within our ongoing district plans, and they're not too prescriptive where this roadmap is part of it, but not the singular and only thing that we do. It's able to be built upon. So I just wanted to say I agree with the things that are there. 1, 2, 3, and 5 are still pretty overreaching on all those guiding principles, and I think that those are helpful within the policy as it is.
I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying you want to keep 1, 2, 3, and 5. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I mean, I don't disagree that we need a focus on those things in number 4. It's just I don't know if we need individual developed plans that are outside of what we've already created here as a plan, and how many plans are we going to create?
Okay. Okay. Ms. Bugs?
That actually speaks to exactly what I was going to recommend, considering this is Master's request that we figure out how to compromise procedurally. Is there a way to amend this policy so that it references the equity roadmap? So instead of listing out any of the bullet points, any of the numbers that we say, and, there's language that references the equity roadmap to guide us as if there are to be changes. Those changes will likely be in a roadmap, even if it's not in printed form. There will be a document that is both visible to the public, that can be updated, efficiently by the team, by Dr. Battle and her staff as they see fit or as they see issues arise. To your effort of compromising that, is that feasible? Is that procedurally appropriate, and is it feasible? Again, don't really know who I'm asking, but no, Dr. Severe, is that procedurally appropriate?
I would steer away from actually referencing something called an equity roadmap.
Okay.
I think maybe what's in the current number 5 might do that. I would say this equity roadmap is a publicly available plan.
But it might not be called an equity
Yes, I would
roadmap,
call
and then
it
under the
fine.
next director, right?
It may be called the roadmap to equity, right?
Might be called the equity plan.
Equity plan, whatever it is. We
Can I
don't
ask a
need-
deeper question then? Because if that is the case, considering that there were requests to potentially add things or take things away or shift them as our needs in the district shift, would that not be feasible here? That as a new director comes and they identify? I understand. I think I'm looking for a way to, in 20 minutes, decide what this equity policy will look like. Because I don't think any of us want to be voting against equity, but it's just, I think we're trying to drill down on language, so I'm trying to
Can
make
I withdraw
recommendations
my, I
that
don't think,
too.
did I make a motion?
You made a motion for
Don't.
an
The
amendment.
motion that was not seconded.
But I wanted to, I was going to ask a question about it.
Can I make a motion?
Can amend your previous
We've got two
motion.
motions on the floor right now.
Okay.
Can we
But I
just-
thought Jeannie's wasn't seconded.
It
so
was
failed.
seconded. Yeah, it was already seconded. So you got two motions on the floor already. So we got to hold on, just everybody pump their brakes.
So I will withdraw my motion and entertain another amendment to this policy. If Ms.,
Can I amend my original motion?
Yes.
go for it.
Can we just,
If we accept the policy.
so hold on a second, Miss Tyler, can you hold on for a second? We need to carry the vote through on the motion that's on the floor. You've rescinded, which you technically can't do, but we'll let that slide.
Okay.
You've removed your motion.
Older motion.
We'll let that go. We have a motion on the floor already, so we're going to vote this one down so that Ms. Tyler can amend. Let's just do that. So all in favor of the policy as it's presented, which was the original motion, right? All in favor of the policy as presented, raise your hand. Okay. All opposed to the policy as presented, raise your hand.
your hand.
Raise your hand. Everybody raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay.
Okay.
So the policy as presented fails. Now you go to her. Let her make a note.
Okay. Ms. Tyler, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I move to amend the policy to remove number 4 and make number, do I need to say make number 5 number 4? I mean, can I just say remove number 4?
I've got it in my notes. I think that would be appropriate. I think you,
Okay.
I understand what you're
Then
doing.
I move to amend the policy by removing number 4.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okey doke. All those in favor of,
I still have questions, but I'm-
you have a question?
No, I'm just trying to process and read, that's all my,
When we're only voting on removing number 4 right now, right?
No, we're voting on the policy without number 4.
And passing.
and accepting the
Finalizing.
policy.
Okay.
So all those in favor of adopting 2.301 as amended? Is that right? Raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right. Okey-doke. Let's move on with the remainder of our agenda. Dr. Severe?
Policy 2.806 allows boards of education to, if they meet certain criteria, which Metro Schools does meet, to raise the threshold from $25,000 to $50,000 We would like to move forward with this for the approval of contracts. As you know, things are getting more expensive. Even the most mundane of contracts are coming in higher than the current $25,000 threshold. So this would be an opportunity to expedite work and get things into schools all the quicker.
Do you have a motion to adopt 2.806? Don't look at the TV, because that's not what we're
Okay.
talking about. We're talking about purchase solicitations for bids, proposals, and quotations, policy 2.80.
2.806.
I make a motion to approve policy 2.806, purchase solicitation for bids, proposals, and quotations.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Any discussion?
Me.
Yes?
I actually would like to recommend that we increase to like maybe $100,000. What, because the number of contracts coming in and the considering that you all are talking about inflation, I don't know. There's just going to be a whole lot of
I'm not
contracts.
certain if the public chapter limited it to 100,000 or not.
Okay.
My suggestion would be to, let me check with legal.
Sure.
And find out, and we could come back at a later time in the very near future and bump this as high as the board desires.
Sure, I'm not married to it, just wanted to make that ask. Okay.
If I can just interject, I read the legislation, and I do believe that actually part of this is intended to make it where contracts over $50,000 have to be competitive. That's that. We simply had a lower threshold as our policy, but now the state has decided anything over, so it wasn't the state functioning in a way, to allow larger amounts. It was actually them trying to narrow down on it. So that was my layperson, public school educated reading comprehension skills interpretation of it.
Good job. Okay, so, any other discussion on this? Okay. All those in favor of adopting 2.806? Did you have? Oh,
No,
okay.
no, I was raising my hand.
Okay. Okay, all those opposed? Thank you so much. Motion passes.
Thank you. Policy 3.202, the emergency preparedness plan now requires that school districts conduct a virtual learning drill once per school year. And so our operations folks are aware of that, and that's going to be implemented. And we just want to make sure that the policy is aligned with the statute.
Does this still mean that the kids will have to be overnight because they need to take their computer home? What does this drill look like?
This drill does not require anyone to even get online. So it could be that it's just simply talking about what might happen in case you needed to move into a virtual environment. It is truly
So it's
the
having a
equivalent
plan.
of a fire drill with your computer, I think.
Okey-doke. Can I get a motion to adopt 3.202?
I'll move to approve.
Okay? Second. We have a second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Raise your hand. Thank you so much. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Policy 4.2092 is a new policy for us. It's a virtual education program, which is distinct from our virtual school program. I want to make sure we're clear about that. So we have had one of the huge aspects of the recent years has been the advent of using virtual education for all kinds of things. Public Chapter 897 allows that school districts can use up to 2 virtual learning days per semester for various things, for illness, for inclement weather, for standardized testing days. And the administration would like to have that flexibility to use those days if and when it's appropriate. This does not at all change our virtual school or MNPS virtual school. It has nothing to do with that. It's truly about the opportunity to bake in but to bake those in, the board has to take action. 2 days per semester to have as an option for virtual education.
Can I get a motion to adopt policy 4.2092?
Move adoption.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you so much. Opposed? Okay.
4.403, as many of you know, the Public Chapter 744, otherwise known as the Age-Appropriate Materials Act, requires a lot of work at the school level in terms of documenting and maintaining lists of materials in the library collection, but it also requires the board to come up with a procedure for the review of materials to ensure the materials are age-appropriate for maturity levels and how to deal with those. We worked with the Curriculum Instruction Division to find a process that would work for them within our current business operations practice, and 4.403 that you have before you is the way they would like to move forward, but need your approval.
Okay, can I get a motion to adopt policy 4.403?
Move approval.
Can I get a second?
Approve. Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Masters?
So this lives completely separate from our current policy for if a parent individually wants to request that their child not use some.
In the same policy, but it is related specifically to library material.
Right. Got it.
Okay, Ms. Tyler, did you want to say something?
Did we not already have some sort of criteria for just our libraries?
So the board.
Our classroom, the regular library.
So the board has not had a library-specific materials policy. It's all been around instructional materials, but this requires us to have something specific to the library, as well as for all instructional materials. It's essentially anything that could be used in a library or as an instructional material, which I guess is just about everything, right? And so this enumerates that work.
The procedure for that policy covers library materials.
That's in fact true. The procedure for that, the administrative procedure for that does cover library materials. So while it's not been a board policy, it's been an administrative procedure. This just elevates it to a board policy to keep us in compliance with the law. So that, go ahead.
So were these basically the the procedures that were already being used?
Essentially, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? All righty, all those in favor of passing 4.403, please raise your hand. Okey-doke. Passes unanimously. Onward.
Thank you. 4.406 requires that boards have a policy in place regarding complaints about vendors' access to online content. So it's not what a teacher is accessing, it's not something in the curriculum, but it's a third-party vendor that a student might have access to ensure that they have their content in line with the appropriate content that we would have for our students anyway. I think internally we've been doing this for years, making sure that any material that we purchased was appropriate use, and they adhere to the same standards that we would hold ourselves to, but this just codifies it.
I don't believe that what's up here is what you're talking about.
It's at the very bottom.
It's at the tail end of that.
Oh, I'm so
It's on the
sorry.
second
3
page.
pages.
Okay, ignore me.
You can see.
All righty. Can I get a,
Can we get to
It's a
on the
little
third
more
page.
down, if you can go to the bottom of the second page.
open my laptop?
A little
That's
more.
what I should do.
It's yellow. It'll jump out.
There it is. Okey-doke.
Do we have a procedure for how we ensure that this is happening?
It will be baked into the contracts
Okay.
with vendors.
Okey-doke. Any, do we have a motion? Have we had a motion on this yet? No. Okay. Can I get a motion on policy 4.406.
Move to approve.
Get a second? Thank you. Discussion? Do you have anything you want to say here? Okay, go ahead.
So is the requirement that their sites are ADA compliant, is that someplace else?
That's somewhere else, correct.
So it does exist?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, that's
Okay.
exactly right.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okey-doke. All those in favor of adopting 4.406? Thank you so much. Passes unanimously. Next.
State law now requires that the grading scale has shifted statewide from a 93 to 100 for an A, from a 90 to 100 is an A, and our grading system policy needs to be updated to reflect that. That's it.
Okay. So
90 to 100, 80
so
to.
59 is now failing as
Jamal,
opposed to.
can you scroll down to the highlighted part, please?
There we go. So 59 is failing.
59 is failing.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Can I get a motion on policy 4.600?
I move that we approve the policy.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
Is there any way to make this retroactive where it can help us if we graduated?
All our GPAs? All time? All
Yes,
the
please.
GPAs?
Me too.
Unfortunately, lifts all the ships, Mr. Little. We'd all be.
Okay. I guess that's a no?
Okay.
Is that a no? Okay.
I've gotten that question from people too.
Do you have a question?
No, I have gotten that question from people too, and I would really like it because I have a child who got a 92 in art. But, you know, we live with that.
Got to move on.
I think it's interesting because, I mean, it'll change the number, but, I mean, grading is still grading. I mean, it's not like teachers don't know a 90 is an A now and anyway.
Okay.
It's great.
All righty
It's
then.
great. All that
Any other-
has nothing to do with it.
Okay. All those in favor of passing 4.600? So much. Motion passes.
If it's okay with the chair, I'd like to take these next four as a block. It's 5.200, 201, 204, and 701. And it all deals with the reemployment of retired teachers. As you may remember, Public Chapter 821 loosened up and the reemployment of teachers to help fill teacher status of teacher slots for those that had previously retired. And this just strips out all the language that restricted the number of days that they could do and things and opens it up and makes it so they can seamlessly transition back to the classroom. It just sort of cleans it up and gets it aligned with what they're able to do.
Okey doke. What's the best way to do this? Just make a motion to pass all four at once? Okay. Can I get a motion to do that?
I move to approve all of the policies discussed.
5.200, 5.201, 5.204, and 5.701? Okay. I'll second that. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Thank you so much. Motion passes.
Thank you. In the past, the state required that students pass a certain number of classes, otherwise they were denied a driver's license. That provision has been removed, so this policy 6.200 reflects that change. And I believe there's a one-sentence change in this that's highlighted in yellow.
Okay. Can I get a motion to adopt policy 6.200?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion of this? Okay. All those in favor? Thank you so much. Let's move to the next one.
So if in the past, the law has allowed districts to opt into the idea of a teacher taught in a school district, but they lived outside and they want to bring their child in, that could be done. This now opens it up to the all district employees. It has been the practice that we do that anyway. we make that an opportunity available for all employees, and this just puts into our policy what is currently in the law. It doesn't mean you're required to, but it means that the district always has the option to. And since we do that, we want to move forward with that and codify it.
Okay. Can I get a motion to adopt policy 6.204?
I move that we adopt policy 6.204.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Okey-doke. All those in favor? Thank you so much.
Policy 6.318 is regarding suspended and expelled students, and in the past, required the district to alert the Commissioner of Education if a student had been expelled for whatever reason, and that has been taken out of the law, so our policy now removes that requirement.
Okay. Can I get a motion to pass 6.318?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Discussion? All righty. All those in favor? Thank you so much. Last one.
Policy 6.409, reporting child abuse. So Public Chapter 841 has narrowed the category of individuals who must receive training on child abuse. And in the past, law required that all school personnel receive training, but moving forward, this training is required for employees working directly with students. And Policy 6.409 aligns with that revised standard. Additionally, Public Chapter 781 allows employees to first report to the Department of Children's Services and law enforcement if they believe an alleged incident of child abuse involves someone employed by or is affiliated with the school district. The district's child abuse coordinator must still be notified. However, in those particular instances, they're not required to be notified first, and they can go directly to Children's Services rather than going to the child abuse coordinator.
All righty. Can I get a motion to adopt policy 6.409?
So moved.
You. Get a second?
A second.
Thank you so much. Discussion. Okay. All those in favor? So much, everybody. All right. Any opposed? No. All righty. That
That's all I have. Thank you.
concludes. Thank you, Dr. Sevier. Our governance meeting at this time. Being there no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Do we want to take a
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.